New violence is starting up throughout the Democratic Republic of Congo. Just this week, gunmen killed up to 8 people in an attack on a Congolese army training camp. And that attack came just ahead of a scheduled UN Security Council trip in mid-May, which will seek to counter President Joseph Kabila's call for UN peacekeepers to pack up and leave. Recently, I spoke with Lisa Shannon, who's doing her part to help stem the violence in this war-torn country. After watching a segment on Oprah, believe it or not, about the conflict, she walked away from her secure life and started an organization to help the women of the Congo. She's just out with a book, 1,000 Sisters, My Journey into the Worst Place on Earth to be a Woman.
Hi, here I am on the border of Congo. Behind me is the border from Rwanda to Congo. We're about to cross over into the world's deadliest conflict.
I had heard when you cross the border into Congo, the look in people's eyes changes. Why did I invite that place in? Why did I pursue it?
Na hivi hatujui kama tufanye nini tena, tunasumbuka sana hivi mama Amerika.
We love you, and we know in America that women, all of you, are the future of Congo.
I think back on the last 5 weeks. Who am I against Congo? I feel ridiculous. My hurling antics at this country's problems has been like tossing teaspoons of water on a raging fire.
So, you've told the story. Lisa, welcome to GRITtv. I'm going to ask you to tell it again. You were sitting there innocently watching Oprah, and something happened.
Well, I learned about the deadliest war since World War II. And basically, I learned that the Hutu militia responsible for the Rwandan genocide were afterwards pushed over the border into Congo, where they set up shop and started terrorizing the locals. Then other militias were formed to fight them, then each other, and it erupted into Africa's First World War, basically. And for me, I think I was just shocked. I had never even heard about it. But I was particularly shocked by what was happening for women. It's the worst sexual violence on the planet. Rape, as horrible as it is almost a soft word for what women are living through in Congo. Gang rape, being held as sexual slaves for months or even years at a time, a systematic attempt to destroy women's ability to reproduce, to the extent that doctors who treat women say they can actually tell which militia and from which location women were attacked because they're effectively branded with their injuries. So for me, I just felt like, having been someone who always thought when I, heard about the Holocaust or what happened in, Rwanda, surely if I had known or if I had lived at those times, I would have done something. So it's one of those moments where I just thought, okay, I don't know how to stop what's happening, but I need to find some simple way to send the message that I care.
So what did you do?
Well, initially I signed up to sponsor 2 women through Women for Women International, which is a sponsorship program where you send letters, women get education and money to help rebuild their lives. So I sponsored 2 women, and then I decided to run. The first year I trained and ran a 30-mile trail run by myself because I was the only person I knew who knew what was happening in Congo and wanted to do something. But then word started to spread after that. I raised the goal had been to raise 30 sponsorships the first year. In fact, I raised 80, about $28,000. And then I started hearing from other women around the country who wanted to do their own run. And before you know it, it blossomed into a movement.
You've now got an organization, Women Run for Congo, and Run for the Women of Congo.
Run for Congo Women.
Run for Congo Women, we'll get it right.
Yeah.
How did that end up taking you to Congo itself and this book?
Well, it blossomed that second year, but it got to a point where people had almost assumed I had been to Congo. And I felt like I needed to go and see it for myself. I needed to meet the women, look at the program up close. So I went effectively on my own to Congo in February 2007. And, when I arrived, I had a few questions. One, how many of the women we've sponsored are actually directly affected by the war, and is the program effective? And what is the security situation on the ground as well? Because people occasionally refer to Congo as post-conflict. So I wanted to know, are things getting better? And certainly what I found is that the conflict is ongoing. Women do not agree with the assessment that it's post-conflict. So the danger is very real and present for them. But at the same time, I was just overwhelmed by the sense of joy that women had. I mean, they would sing and dance and celebrate. With every group I met, that was the case.
You say, even in that trailer, you're asking yourself as you arrive in the country, why did I decide to let this place in?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Did you come to an answer with that? Because there are an awful lot of people that watch that same segment on Oprah and just waited for a softer, kinder, gentler segment to come on. They didn't start doing what you did.
Right. Well, I mean, for one, what I found is through this very deep connection between me and the women, you know, I call my sisters, that I've found more of a sense of purpose and joy in my life than I had when I was dealing with supposedly pleasant things. So, you know, I can't think of a better reason to be alive.
Coming back to the facts, you talked about the continuing nature of the conflict, a conflict that a lot of people kind of have a feeling is over or settled or in some kind of peace process.
Right.
There were 8 Red Cross workers kidnapped in Congo recently.
Yeah.
What does that tell you, or should it tell us about the ongoing condition of what's happening there?
Well, it is ongoing. When I was just there a month ago, and the day after I left, a journalist I had been traveling with drove straight through an FDLR ambush. So, and she was someone who had been convinced that it was pretty safe for Westerners at that time. The conflict is absolutely ongoing. The situation for women hasn't changed at all. There are moments when there will be waves of calm, but militias are still there. They're still terrorizing people. In terms of that specific situation, I think it's an interesting question for me because people often ask whether or not I felt it was safe, and in some ways I felt there was a measure of protection being a Westerner. But what you find is often in these situations, militias will let the white person go, but they keep the Congolese staff. And so this is a situation where it was one Swiss worker and the rest of them were Congolese. So I think it's something that weighs very heavily on your mind when you're there, that you have a responsibility not just to keep yourself safe, but to keep people who are there guiding you and being your support safe as well.
Did you run across our friends Eve Ensler and the V-Day campaign in Congo while you were there? I
saw their car drive around Bukavu. They're fantastic. I've never met Eve, and we've had some dealings back and forth between Run for Congo Women and their projects, which are fantastic. I love it. Anyone who's putting themselves out there, getting the message out there, and really doing something for Congolese women, I'm a huge fan.
Do you think the Obama administration is doing everything it could do?
I think they need to do more. I think that President Obama was one of the original co-sponsors in 2006 of Congo legislation, so I know that he has the heart for it. But they need to what I hear from administration officials and from our representatives in general is they need to hear from us that it's a priority. They will do more. There are some bills in the House and Senate right now that I think are enormously important, and we find often that with Congo legislation there's bipartisan support, so we have a chance at them passing, but they have to be prioritized, and for them to be prioritized they have to hear from constituents.
We've got one last question, and that has to do with what's fueling the conflict.
Yeah.
A lot of people have different perspectives on that. What's your sense of it at this point?
I think it's clear that Congo is considered one of the wealthiest countries on the planet in terms of resources. Conflict minerals are fueling the conflict. The Congolese government, the Rwandan government, the Ugandan government, international corporations have all made an enormous amount of money off of the chaos. So there's a vested interest in maintaining the chaos, and that needs to change.
Corporations like which?
I'm not going to get into listing the specific corporations. What I will say is that there's active engagement with the tech industry right now over providing conflict-free products. Products that are actually certified conflict-free. And what's great about the tech industry, for instance, I was just talking with someone from Microsoft in Seattle, is that they're invested in making that happen, but they have to be responsible for their own supply chains. So that's the critical piece.
All right, we'll put more information on our website too. It's GRITtv.org. The book we've been discussing is 1,000 Sisters, My Journey into the Worst Place on Earth to be a Woman. Lisa Shannon, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
We'll be back with more.